Student debt. We hear about it all the time, right? It's this massive, overwhelming crisis. But today, we're going to look at a really specific corner of this problem, the beauty school trap. And believe it or not, a nearly $49 million solution that's been hiding in plain sight. It really all boils down to this one question, doesn't it? For so many people, getting that professional license is the ticket to a real career, a better life. But what if the price of that ticket is a lifetime of debt? Is the trade-off really worth it? For millions of people, that's just the deal on the table. Skills for debt. And it's hitting one industry particularly hard. An industry that, let's be honest, most of us use all the time, but probably never think about in these terms. But what if I told you there's another way? A model that totally flips the script. One that gets students trained and into the workforce with zero debt, and instead of costing the public money, it actually generates a massive return for taxpayers. Yeah, for real. Okay, so to really get this, we first need to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the national student debt crisis. And I'm telling you, the numbers are just staggering. By the end of 2025, total student loan debt in the U.S. is projected to top $1.8 trillion. It's a number so huge, it's almost hard to even process. Trillion with a T. And here's the thing, it's not slowing down. As you can see here, the growth rate is actually speeding up. In 2025 alone, the total debt pile grew by $54 billion. That's billion with a B. So let's bring that giant number down to a human level. For the 42.8 million Americans with federal loans, the average balance is now almost $40,000. For a lot of people, that's more than their car loan. It's a down payment on a house they can no longer afford because of this debt. All right, so we've seen the 30,000-foot view. Now, let's zoom way in to see how this whole crisis plays out in one very specific place, the beauty industry. This slide right here gets to the absolute core of the problem. Look at these numbers. The cost of tuition at a typical cosmetology school is often pretty much the same as what a graduate can expect to make in their entire first year. The return on investment, it's just fundamentally broken.
So why is the system so broken? Well, it's because the incentives are all wrong. See, schools can get more federal aid money the longer a student is enrolled. So what's the incentive? To stretch out the programs. And the result is a total mess. Most students don't finish on time, and the vast majority of these programs train people for jobs where they won't even earn more than someone with just a high school diploma. This whole situation got so bad that in 2025, lawmakers finally stepped in with some massive new legislation designed to force some accountability. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBA. Now, the heart of this new law is the earnings premium test. It's a really simple but very high-stakes rule. Basically, if your graduates consistently don't make more money than a high school grad, your school gets cut off from federal student loans. Simple as that.
But, and this is a big but, the law also made things tougher for the lowest income borrowers. The new plan, called WRAP, got rid of those $0 monthly payments. So suddenly, even if you were only making $15,000 a year, you went from paying nothing to having a mandatory monthly bill. And it's important to remember, this bill was huge. It wasn't just about student loans. It bundled these new rules with really broad tax cuts and some significant changes to social safety net programs.
Okay, so you have this really complicated, messy federal system. But what's so fascinating is how one school is avoiding all of it, the debt, the bad incentives, all the new rules, by doing something pretty radical. They just said no thanks to federal money.
So let me introduce you to the Louisville Beauty Academy. Their entire philosophy is built around a simple but really powerful idea. Just provide great training at a price students can actually afford so they can graduate with their license and absolutely zero debt. They call their core idea fiscal velocity, and it's all about speed. How fast can you get a student trained, licensed, earning money, and, this is the key part, paying taxes and contributing to the economy? This speed-to-market approach creates a huge advantage because LBA isn't trying to game the system for federal aid. They get students into the workforce a full 6 months faster. For that graduate, that's an extra $15,000 in their pocket. And for the government, it's an extra $2,400 in tax revenue from just one student. So what does that look like when you scale it up over the long haul? What happens when you run this model for an entire decade? Well, the financial impact is it's absolutely incredible. Here it is. Over the last 10 years, the Louisville Beauty Academy and its debt-free graduates have contributed a staggering $48.7 million to the local and national economy.
And what's really amazing is the breakdown. You see the millions coming in from income taxes, payroll taxes, business taxes, all of that. But the most important line on this whole chart is the last one. Public funds consumed, zero. This is a massive economic engine that runs without a single dollar of federal student aid.
So here's the kicker. If LBA had been a typical school taking federal money, it would have cost taxpayers about $25 million in that same decade. Instead, it contributed nearly $49 million. When you do the math, that's a $73.7 million positive swing for the public treasury. It's just unreal. And this incredible success story in Louisville brings us to the final, and I think the most important question. Is this just some kind of a one-off miracle, or could this be a real blueprint for the future?
Seriously, just think about that for a second. If a single academy in one city can create that kind of massive positive impact for taxpayers just by opting out of the federal aid system, what would happen if that model was used across the country for all kinds of jobs? It makes you wonder, is the future of workforce training actually debt-free?